Recorded Books presents 1979 by Val McDermid, narrated by Katie Loong.
Prologue. Fat flakes blew into his face. Cold, wet kisses on his cheeks and eyelids. Last time there had been a winter like this, he'd been a wee boy and all he remembered was the fun. Sledging down the big hill, throwing snowballs in the playground, sliding across the frozen lake in the park. Now, it was a pain in the arse. Driving was a nightmare of slush and black ice. Walking was worse. He'd already wrecked his favourite pair of shoes, and every time he took his socks off, his toes were wrinkled pink sultanas. But there were advantages. No one would ever know he'd been here. His footprints would be erased within the hour. There was nobody else on the street. All the curtains were drawn tight to keep the night out and the heat in. The children were indoors now, their every outdoor garment drying on kitchen pulleys and steaming clothes horses after a day in the snow. Everybody else was huddled in front of the TV. There had been enough snow this January for the novelty to have worn off. Even the corporation bus he'd overtaken on the main drag had been empty, a ghost ship in the night. The only people he'd passed had been a couple of diehards headed for the pub. There was an eerie stillness in this side street, though. The snow suffocated the engine noise from the few vehicles that had braved the blizzard. He felt like the last man standing. Head bowed against the weather, he almost missed his destination. At the last moment, he realised his mistake and wheeled abruptly into the lobby of the tenement close. He took a deep breath, brushing the snow from his eyebrows. He climbed the stairs, rehearsing what he'd been planning all day. He was standing on the edge of the road to nowhere. Maybe it was late in the day to start thinking about protecting his future, but better late than never. And he'd figured a way out. Maybe more than one. It wouldn't be easy. It might not be straightforward, but he deserved better than this. And tonight, there was going to be a reckoning. Chapter 1. It started badly and only got worse. Blizzards, strikes, unburied bodies, power cuts, terrorist threats, and Shawadiwadi's greatest hits topping the album charts. 1979 was a cascade of catastrophe. Unless, like Ali Burns, you were a journalist. For her tribe, someone else's bad news was the unmistakable sound of opportunity knocking. Ali Burns stared out of the train carriage window at white, broken only by a line of telegraph poles. They were miraculously still dark on one side, sheltered from the blustery wind whipping the snow in sudden flurries. The train sat motionless, trapped in mid-journey by drifts blocking the tracks. She glanced across at Danny Sullivan. How come winter always brings Scotland to a standstill? He chuckled. It's just like murder on the Orient Express. Stuck on a train in a snowdrift. Only without the murder, Ali pointed out. Okay, only without the murder. And the luxury, and the cocktails, and Albert Finney in a hairnet. Danny pulled a face. Picky, picky, picky. Anybody would think you were on the subs tables, fiddling with my commas and misrelated participles. Ali laughed. I don't even know what a misrelated participle is, and I doubt you do. I did once, if that counts. They subsided into silence again. They'd met unintentionally on the freezing platform of Haymarket Station on the second day of the year, colleagues returning to work after spending Hogmanay with their families. There were plenty of her fellow hacks Ali would have hidden behind a platform pillar to avoid, but Danny was probably the least objectionable of them. If he was sexist, racist, and sectarian to the core, he'd done a good job of hiding it, and there was no escaping the fact that after time spent with her parents, she was desperate for any conversation from her own world. The nearest she'd come was the first paper of the year, with its coverage of the International Year of the Child. And
to keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it. at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.